Hello, everybody. How's everybody doing today? Huh? Doing fine? Dealing with all the heat? Very tough. It's very hot. It's actually, usually California is dry heat, but it's been humid recently. So kind of like back home in Japan or Korea. I'm guessing Taiwan is humid like Hong Kong. So the humidity is very high. Uh, so we've had to deal with that. So uh, today, hopefully, we'll get into a new author, study the literature and the background of this person, and hopefully find it very interesting. We're going to be learning about Lewis Sinclair. So again, if you have the syllabus, I've changed the last two authors because in setting it up, see, I've got to set up the lesson and time it and make sure I fit the time requirement that the school wants. So if it's too short, I can't do it. So the last two have been way too short. I can't stretch them out long enough to meet the time requirement that the University of the East wants. So I've changed them. And the ones I've changed them for, like last week, which was, anybody remember? Allen Ginsberg. Kind of an interesting mixed up background. Remember with the strange drifter friends and drug addict friends and social, I guess we could say, misfits. They didn't use misfits last week. They used a different, like, ragtag kind of group of people. So it's pretty interesting. And today I've changed it to a Sinclair Lewis. It's an also interesting background and is very famous for people who have studied American literature for a long time. And I can only hope that you enjoy learning about this fellow. And so again, International School of the East, this class is for August the 24th, the year 2020. So August the 24th, 2020. And try to get into this and make it as interesting a read as I possibly can. Okay? All right. So all right. Looks like I'll probably have to minimize my face, which we don't need to see again. I can just do ghost style. So there you go, English 103. That's the school code. Class title, Literature of the West. There's the secret, week 8. But remember, I've told you twice already. August the 24th. Okay? All right. So here we go. All right. So today we're going to be learning about an American writer named Sinclair Lewis. So first name is Sinclair. It's a very old style name. I don't think I've heard this name in my lifetime. And you know, I'm 30 years old, so I have not heard it. But as you can see, he was born in 1885 and lived till 1951. So that would be, let's see, 95, 205, 215, 225, 235, 45. So he was 66, or 66 years old. So it was from another generation, but I have never met anyone named Sinclair. Okay. So you see here underneath, if you're going to ask a question, wait a minute, why in the parentheses are there two names? Harry Lewis and Tom Graham. What does that mean? You said his name was Sinclair Lewis? Well, we will discover later the reading here that it was very popular at the time for writers to have what is called in slang terms a pen name. They would use a different name. So I think his first books were maybe under Harry Lewis instead of his real name, and then Tom Graham. And writers had different reasons why they would do that. If you remember when we discussed Mark Twain, does anybody well, that was his pen name. Does anybody remember his real name? Okay. Samuel Clemens. So maybe I'll ask a question on the final about the different pen names of certain authors. So it's funny, with Mark Twain, he's more remembered for his pen name, where Sinclair Lewis is more remembered for his real name. But, they would do that to maybe write some wild stuff and not have any direct criticism because people didn't know who was Tom Graham, right? So kind of a safety technique. And as you can see, he wrote novels and he was a playwright. Okay. So again, hopefully somebody with a interesting background in life for my students to enjoy. Okay. So here we go. The first American ever to win the Nobel Peace, or actually Nobel Prize, they should have put peace, but the Nobel Prize for literature. So for writing. You can win the Nobel Prize for different things, for politics, science. Like I'll tell you, probably if one person comes up with a cure for COVID, they will give that person a Nobel Prize for medicine. So you're my students. If anybody's a scientist here, like Tull, or I think Inky's a part-time scientist. If you gals can come up with a cure, you'll get the Nobel Prize, instant citizenship, probably a grant money if you live like a queen. Don't forget your teacher though. I'm here. And I email, so yeah. Just kidding. So Sinclair Lewis is remembered as the greatest satirist of his age. Okay, it doesn't say Satanist. He's not a believer in the devil, but a satirist. So a satirist, satire is when you make fun of something or someone, right? So we will see who he made fun of, right? He's best known for his stinging critiques of American materialism, as represented by his most famous novel, Babbitt. Okay, so let me get into some definition there. I forget which class it was. Maybe this class. Okay, stinging. What's this? Stinging comes from a stinger. Stinger is what a bee has, or a wasp. I know how to say wasp in Korean. Malbol. So a wasp. Wasp is the long, skinny one with the long wings, and then we know what a honeybee is, right? So they have stingers on their back, and if they land on you, they can sting you, and it hurts like hell. I've been stung by a bee before. So he's saying here, it's a metaphor, so stinging or painful critiques where he criticizes American materialism. It's another fellow like Ginsberg that some people had more than what he did, and he didn't like it too much. Okay, and this was represented by his most famous novel, Babbitt, which we shall talk a little bit more about later. Say a prolific writer, which we've had this term before, I think with James Baldwin, which means a person wrote a lot. He published 22 novels and 3 plays. Okay. So very prolific. Sinclair Lewis was born in the small village of Sauk Center, Minnesota, the third son of a country doctor. And country doctors at that time, they made house calls. I do not know any doctor nowadays that makes house calls. Could you imagine what they would charge you? But doctors for many, many years in the old days would just come for free and then see what was wrong with you and charge you according to what you had. Hell, now ambulances used to be free. Now the hospital could be 2 blocks down the street and the ambulance is going to charge you $400. It's like, well, my legs are okay, even though my arms have been cut off. I think I'll walk to the hospital and save $400. So yeah, times have changed. His mother, who was the daughter of a Canadian physician, and physician is another word for doctor, so his father was a doctor. His mother was the daughter of a Canadian doctor, and she died of tuberculosis, or what we call for short here TB, when Lewis was just 6 years old. Poor boy. That must be a very sad day when your mother passes when you're only 6 years old. 1 year later, his father married Isabel Warner, whom Lewis thought of as his mother. So I guess she was very kind and loving to him, and he accepted her as his mother. Good for him. That's a good situation, since what the first one was, losing his mother, which is very sad. So Isabel Warner, she read to him, and he had access to the 300 or 400, volumes, exclusive of medical books in his father's library. Wow, he's going to have a big medical vocabulary. Believe it or not, for me, I'm talking to my Korean students. A lot of my first Korean words I learned were from a Korean doctor that wanted to learn English words from me, medical terms. So I had to find out the Hangukmal first. So that's why I still remember words like chizil, right? You know what that is? English. Hemorrhoids. Again, he was a general physician, so Byungbi, that's constipated, right? So I learned these words first. Very strange. I didn't learn Annyeonghaseyo first. So again, these 300 or 400 exclusive medical books in his father's library. I forgot to say, so for Wani and Lishuan, we are on 204 on the left side. Okay, we are on 204 on the left side. Don't worry about that. Okay, because they always want to know the page numbers because they bought the book. I guess they're rich. Wow. So men, pretty Taiwanese ladies with money, there they are. Good luck. So later, Lewis characterized Sauk Center, that's the small village where he was from in Minnesota, as a narrow-minded and socially provincial. Okay, so let me go through those two. There's a lot of stuff here. Anyone, or this town, basically at the time, is narrow-minded. They don't have an open mind on a lot of things in the world. They kind of just, but again, this was a long time ago, so every country was like that. So if they're narrow-minded, they don't really believe a lot of other things, and that their mind was not open, right? I can give you an example. When I first started teaching in Koreatown after a few years, uh, the United States started experimenting with fertilization drugs. And what those were for, let's say a couple was trying to have a baby and they were not successful. The wife was not getting pregnant. Let's say this was after a few years. Most people gave up, but they experimented with these fertilization drugs, and some ladies started getting pregnant. It was like an assistant to their own ovaries. So, unfortunately, they were very, very strong, the medicine at the time. Usually, anytime they make a new medicine, uh, it's too strong in the beginning, and they have to make it a little less powerful. And how do I know that it was too strong? Because one day in the news, it was a big, big news story. A woman that was using fertilization drugs, she gave birth to 5 children. 5, which was a big, big shocker. Now, getting back to narrow-minded, I had a Korean lady, let's say almost harmony or grandmother age, almost. Um, and I guess she was not from a big city, and she was from a small town. So, like here, she kind of had a narrow mind. So, when I told the class, "Hey, do you know this woman here in the United States just had 5 kids?" Uh, so she started yelling at me and telling me that that's not possible and it's impossible for a woman to have 5 babies. So I had to have someone uh, translate in Korean to her, and then she still said no. Her mind was still very closed, and she said the only thing that can have 5 kids is a cat. Humans cannot do that. So I was lying and wrong. So that's a narrow-minded person, not open-minded. And then socially provincial means that small town where you're from, that's all they really concentrate on. They don't have these, like, if you're from the big city, you're from Seoul, you're thinking about Busan, maybe you're thinking about the world, coming to LA, but, you know, 70 years ago, 80 years ago, in this town, people are just thinking about South Center. That's all they really worry about. So these books that his father had, they offered him an escape, a mental escape to put himself into these books. So please, class, don't try to be narrow-minded. And you're all from big cities and you've all moved here from your country, which I respect. So I don't think you can be socially provincial, right? Not my guys. Okay. So Sinclair, his life was also made miserable, and miserable means worse than bad. So he was made miserable by teasing. So teasing is what a lot of kids do, even today. It's just what kids do, and they tease you. If kids tease other kids for being too fat, being too short, wearing glasses, they don't like their clothes. So he was teased. Why? That they found him strange looking with his red hair and very bad skin. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to do some investigation what they actually mean by bad skin. But I guess he just didn't have a normal look about him. And I don't know if you know, because from your countries, whether it's Taiwan, Japan, China, Korea, 99% of the people have black hair. I guess there are some with dark brown hair, but none of you have naturally red hair. So here, kids will be called Ginger. Any redheaded kid, someone's going to call, if it's a boy or a girl, they're probably going to call them, hey, Ginger, right? So there you go. All right. So continuing. So again, we're still on 204 on the left-hand side. All right. At the age of 13, Lewis ran away from home to become a drummer boy in the Spanish-American War. But his father caught up with him at the railroad station and brought the boy home. So his father did not want him to go into the war because he knew father was very smart and I guess caring. And even though you're playing the drum, you can still get shot. Lewis then started to write, kept a diary early in his youth, and he produced romantic poetry. Wow. Many of my ladies here received a romantic poem from ex-boyfriend. I know Temujin likes to write a lot of what he calls romantic, aka violent poetry. I have to ask Paul if she got any from him. But yeah, I've never written romantic poetry. I'm not a good person for poetry. And stories about knights and fair ladies. So I guess he liked the old European style of knights on horses, and ladies like Rapunzel with long hair, and beautiful European dresses, right? Okay, so this brings me to the bottom of the page. Again, 204, Lichuan on the left in 1902. So again, here's the framework, right? We're talking about small provincial town. That's 118 years ago, okay? Probably none of those people in that town had ever seen a Japanese person, Chinese, Korean, Filipino, so no Asian folks, you know. So socially provincial. So again, in 1902, Lewis entered Oberlin Academy. He later moved to Yale, very prestigious, where he contributed to the Yale Literary Magazine. He also met Jack London, who was a famous writer, while at Yale, and later sold the older writer short story plots. Plots are basically the structure. So he sold him, there we go, short story sold, right? Show. Sells seashells by the seashore. So he sold him the plots, and then Mr. London can fill it in any way he wants to. A lifelong wanderer, we had this word last week with Ginsberg. Again, the Japanese is a furaibo. That means a person that travels from place to place without really a destination. As a wanderer, Lewis spent one summer vacation in England, working on a cattle boat. I know cattle farms. I've never heard of a cattle boat. I'm going to have to look into that myself. And in another year, went to Panama, all the way in South America, in search of a job on the canal. He also worked as a janitor, 1906 through 07, at Upton Sinclair's ill-fated, which means it did not succeed. You could have an ill-fated business, which means it just never succeeded. Socialist commune, Helicon Hall. So what a socialist commune, any type of commune, is a group of people that usually don't get along with main society. And they buy some land out in the country and then make these tents, or if they know how to construct some kind of shelter or house, and then they live out there separate from main society. But this one, Ellicott Hall, did not succeed. Okay, so that brings me to the bottom of 204. So we know it's going to be question time. Okay. Go to the whiteboard. So Bernie, are you a romantic guy? Can you write a romantic poem in Mongolian? Ken's probably pretty romantic, but Ken's going to charge. He's an expensive guy. Okay, so question 1. Okay, Lewis was the first American to win what? And let me stretch this out here. I feel like there's a policeman coming around to give me trouble. Okay, so Lewis was the first American to win what? Let me see. You want some hints? He was the first American to win a gold medal in judo competition. Or Lewis was the first American to win an Academy Award for the movie called Shin Godzilla. So I don't know, but he won something. He was the first American. Okay. Dubonje, number 2. Oh, doesn't want to write. What's going on here? Okay. Oh, Temujin loves these kind of questions. Just supply the number. Anytime I ask him to come up to the board, he does the one. I say, do number 3. He does number 7 because he supplies a number. Okay, number 2. How many novels did he publish? So all I want is the number there. That's it. Okay. 3. Question 3. So number 3, in his youth, what kind of writing did he produce? So again, I'm being specific about his early writing as a boy, which will be quite different later when he gets to be a man. So, okay, so I'll give you a few to write those down. I shall do what I have to do on this side. Let me stretch this out. Okay. So I've asked you questions 1, 2, and 3. And we finished with 205 on the left-hand side. Chibobobo. Okay, so everybody's doing okay. Pugs Chargal is doing okay. Bolor Tuya is doing okay. I think they're some of the most dangerous Mongolian women I have in class. Okay, you want me to go to the eraser? Okay, and thank you again, my guys, my men students who are not trying to steal my eraser like they used to. One, repeating, Lewis was the first American to win what? Again, was it a gold medal? Was it an Academy Award? What was it? Don't forget the time frame. Okay? Okay. Two. How many novels did he publish? Just give me the number here. I'm not mean. I'm not saying, tell me the names of all of his novels. You'd be pretty upset if I did that. So, okay. That's gone. Three, in his youth, what kind of writing did he produce? Again, his writing as a young man, that's a hint, is quite different and probably innocent compared to his writing as a full-fledged adult. Okay? So, all right. So three's gone, and let us return to the interesting reading material. Okay, so we stopped here at the Helicon Hall, and that would be, again, repeating for Li Xuan, that would be the end of the left side of 205. This had to be placed in here from the book. It's very difficult, but this is actually the start of 205 on the right. Okay. Following his graduation from Yale with a master's degree in 1908. Is anybody around here in 1908? Anybody? Mr. Hong, were you born in 1908? Lewis worked for various publishing houses and magazines in Iowa, California, Washington, D.C., which means District of Columbia, and New York City. And Greenwich Village was a suburb of New York City. He associated or had a friendship occasionally with such radicals as John Reed and Floyd Dell, and was briefly, for a short time, a member of the Socialist Party. So radicals are people that are definitely against whichever government they're in. So they would have been against the American government. And they looks like they were socialist, and usually socialism is a lead into communism. So he sometimes had friendships with these folks, and he was a member for a short time. Why he stopped, I don't know. All right. So we're in the middle paragraph now of 205 on the right. Lewis's first two published books were, let me see if I can get the pronunciation on this. It's a strange one. Okay, Hike, it's not Hikey, it's Hike and the Aeroplane, and that was in 1912. Don't worry, again, I will not ask you to know a lot of these years, just the titles. Which he published under the pseudonym, if you're on the East Coast, pseudonym on the West Coast, Tom Graham. So again, a pseudonym is again a pen name, not his real name, to protect him from any criticism at the time. And the other book was Our Mr. Wren, 1914, written 2 years later. He once described how his early novels were written on the Long Island Railroad trains that he rode into New York City each day to his job at a publishing company. In 1913, Lewis began publishing a syndicated book page. And syndicated means it was sent out over the city, maybe to the East Coast or even all of the United States. It was syndicated. And this helped him to gain favorable reviews from other writers. So as far as it went exactly, I'm not sure. Let's say, I'll play it safe and say it went on the East Coast, but it might have gone through the whole United States, which allowed other writers to read it, and then they gave him favorable reviews. They liked his writing. In 1914, he married Grace Livingston Heger, an editor at Vogue magazine. So I didn't even know that the ladies' magazine Vogue was around at that time. It's been around for a long time. I don't know if any of you ladies read Vogue. At that time, I think it was more articles. Now it's a lot of makeup ads, clothes ads. The couple had one son named Wells. And that's another name that never met or heard of anybody named Wells. The only person or thing I know is Wells Fargo Bank. That's it. And Wells was killed overseas in 1944 during World War II. So see, sadly for Sinclair, his father had stopped him from entering World War, or actually the Spanish-American War, which was before World War I, and saved his life. And unfortunately, his son was killed during World War II. He was not able to prevent that. Very interesting situation in the writer's life. Nonetheless, Lewis kept his job as an editor and advertising manager at the book publishing company, George H. Durand, which was the name of the company, until 1916, when he quit and traveled around the country with his wife. You're going to see this as a common theme when he gets older. He really loved to travel many places. And you'll see like other artists, that say actors, actresses, when they get successful, then they really travel around. And when he got successful, Lewis did the same and actually lived overseas also. From this time on, Lewis devoted himself full-time to writing. So devoted means that's what he dedicated his time to. Full-time writing. No more working at a publishing house. No more advertising manager job. No more editor job. Full-time writing. Like the true artist he was. He became famous with the publication of Main Street in 1920. A novel which focused on the tension or stress between idealism and reality in a small provincial town. Obviously, we know he came from a small provincial town, but that was an influence to this book. And, this is an issue even as we have now, especially now with, if you've noticed, with these, let's say left side protesters, the Democratic Party here, they have this idealism. Everything should be a certain way. But that's not dealing, as you can see here, with the reality. Okay, for example, Democrats right now are talking about students should have free college now. That's idealism, right? Why? Oh, because it's a great idea. That would be fantastic. But somebody has to pay for it. And you will still pay for it in your taxes. Very, very high taxes. Nothing. There's an economic terms, if anybody was a business major here and took economics, and they have a term, there is no free lunch. And that's true in any field. Everything, something is paid. So, you know, let's say, you know, I'm not sure what I know California pays the highest state tax in the country and the highest sales tax. Another reason why our gas is so high. Believe it or not, someone told me in Texas there's some places you can get gas for $2.50. You believe that? Mostly we're paying over $4 here. The only time we get lucky when it's like $3.90. So imagine $2.50 or $2.25. So that being said, let's say they were going to have the idealism of free college, the future here in California. I don't know, let's say our state tax is 25%. Once that happens, the state tax will probably be 50%. So you're going to be making a lot less money in more ways than you know. And if you're not taking advantage of the free college because you have to work, this is not going to make you too much happy, right? So again, there's always a thing between what would be fantastic and what's the reality. They also talk about things like that with dating. When you're young, like let's see, the young girls I've talked to now, they'll say, I want to marry a guy that's rich, he's handsome, he has a sports car, oh, and he must have a six-pack. I think Inky demands a six-pack, right? Me, I have a 12-pack, but that's very idealistic. So if you talk to an older woman that's been dating for a long time, or maybe she was married, she's older, she's going to tell you, you know, I left those idealistic situations behind. The next man I marry does not have to have a six-pack, does not have to be rich and have a sports car and super handsome. I just want a man that looks pretty good, no six-pack, and he loves me. He treats me like a queen. So there you go. Idealism and reality. So the Pulitzer Prize jury voted for Main Street that year. Yeah, but they were overruled, or someone had more power and changed the decision by the Columbia University trustees in favor of Edith Wharton's The Age of Innocence. So someone pushed in another direction, some other high-level Columbia University folks. She won, Edith Wharton, for her also impressive book of The Age of Innocence. So, as we say, close for Sinclair, but no cigar. The publication of Babbitt in 1922, remember this was spoken about earlier, however, firmly or strongly secured Lewis's position as an important literary figure. So this made him famous and people respected him at this time, after this novel, Babbitt, as an important literary figure or person. Considered by many literary critics to be his most significant or important work, Babbitt, the satirical, so here's satirical again, comedy, satire, making fun of story of an unhappy businessman who tries to satisfy his restlessness by conforming to social standards. Okay, restlessness. You can have a restless night of sleep where you, as we say, toss and turn and you can't sleep. But some people have a restless personality and they don't like, or I should say, it's difficult for them to follow social standards. So, especially at that time, they were quite strict. They're talking 1922. My father wasn't even born yet, not at all. Um, so, what I can surmise is to explain this to you is there's many people that don't like the traditional, graduate college at a certain time, get married in your 20s, start having children, don't have any scandals, don't get drunk, don't do drugs, whatever. And some people want to drink a lot and get drunk, and want to be wild, and want to be a drifter, and don't want to work for a company, and maybe don't want to get married. So he was a restless person with a restless personality. So it showed in his writing. So he treats the themes of materialism and conformity that captivated Lewis for most of his writing career. Okay, so again, we've already talked about materialism, people wanting many, many material things. Conformity is when you just blindly follow what, let's say, society tells you to do. So again, said, hey, go to school, which he did. I mean, he even got a master's. So that's pretty tough. I don't know exactly how much it was restless, but then, you have to get married in your 20s and have a child and do this and do that. But I guess he wanted different kinds of freedom. I can tell you something. I just read something today which is very similar. It was a story about Kevin Costner. And you guys are probably too young for when he first started, but he talks about how he had the perfect wife and kids, but then he got super famous. And this great marriage that he had, he was just pulled to now being famous and having power and money and influence. He wanted to enjoy all the things, especially a lot of different lady friends that the world had to offer to a now world famous celebrity. And, wife and he got divorced, and, a story talking about many, many famous women that he dated. So he said, hey, life is, and he said the same thing. I don't want to follow rules anymore in the society and the social standards. I just want to enjoy. So I guess that's what was going on in Sinclair's mind too. So that's conformity. And captivated means something that really, really grabs your attention and does not let go. Okay? A lot of times men are captivated by a certain beautiful, famous woman that they see. So for my Korean students for many years, most of the guys, 90% of the Korean guys, were just captivated with Kim Tae-hee. Every guy wanted to marry Kim Tae-hee. I had a student that actually lived with me, and his name was Tae. And I thought he was a good-looking guy. He was in his 30s, spoke perfect English and Korean, and graduated from a language university in Seoul. Had a nice car. I asked him, I said, how do you have a girlfriend? I don't get it. Again, repeating, I thought he was a good-looking guy. He was an intelligent guy, had a nice car, because I know that's important to the Korean ladies. And he said, I only want the level of Kim Tae-hee. If I cannot find the same level of beauty of Kim Tae-hee, I do not waste my time with any women. So that's why he was maybe 35, 36, and did not have a girlfriend. So there you go. Captivated. So these successful novels were followed by another satirical or comedy novel, Aerosmith, in 1925, on which Lewis collaborated, which means worked with someone else. So he collaborated with Dr. Paul D. Kroof on that book, Aerosmith, a satire on the medical profession. Aerosmith was awarded the Pulitzer Prize, but Lewis refused to accept it. This kind of thing happens, every so often. Again, you guys are probably too young. I don't know if you know who the actor Marlon Brando was, but I guess he was a big actor in my mother's time. And then when I was a young guy, he was still kind of famous, but kept on gaining weight and limited his roles. But he was awarded an Oscar for the movie The Godfather, and he refused to accept it. And he had his own reasons for it. So we're going to find out Lewis's reasons here. Okay. In a 1926 letter, Lewis wrote, every compulsion, okay, so that means every pressure is put upon writers to become safe, polite, obedient, and sterile. So, in protest, I decline election or acceptance of the Pulitzer Prize to the National Institute of Arts and Letters some years ago. Okay, so we've come to the bottom of 205 on the right, but let me explain some of these words here. And there's kind of a slang meaning. So the pressure to put on writers to become safe. So that means whatever style you have, they want you to kind of just stay in that style. They don't want you to write something really, really different or really, really dangerous or wild. And then they want you to be polite. Hello, yes, sir. So I guess he had issues with being polite. He didn't like being polite. And then obedient, which means you obey. You don't try to get wild in any way. We've already discussed that he had a restless personality. And sterile. This is going to be tough. How should I say this? The definitive word for sterile is for a man that cannot have children. He has some kind of physical problem and cannot have children. A man can become sterile if he has malaria. So, but some men are born naturally that they cannot father children. But when they use it as a metaphor here, they don't mean that, he's going to have kids. What they mean is the sterileness is like a boring, bland style of writing. So they're like, once you have this style, stay there and don't risk anything. So I don't know if it's in this class. Maybe it was in another school, but I'll give you an example so hopefully you can understand this. Something more along your guys' timeline. Jim Carrey, when he started, he was famous for being a really, really crazy gag man. In his first few movies, that's what made him instantly famous. I remember I saw an interview with him one time, and I think he was paid for, after he made Mask and Ace Ventura. Next movie, I don't know, $25 million. He said he kept the check in his wallet for a long time. He just couldn't believe it. So anyway, his agents and the movie producers said, what Lewis is saying here, just continue to do your funny gag movies. Don't risk it. Be safe. Don't try to do a serious movie. Don't try to do a movie where you're not wild and crazy. I know you want to as an artist, but don't. Be polite, be obedient. Continue to do Dumb and Dumbers. That's it. So he ignored them and did some serious movies, and the public was not ready for that. Those movies didn't make a lot of money, so he had to return to being the funny gag man. Okay, so hopefully you understand that now. We're at the bottom here, so that means I have to go into questions. I have to do a lot of explaining on this guy, but it's good. It's good for your English and good for your overall understanding. I don't know if there's any Jim Carrey fans here. Okay, so 205 on the right-hand side. Question 4. Oops, I have to do a space here. So 4, let me space this too. That's not a one word here. Okay. Name some cities he worked in for different publishing houses. So just tell me these different cities he worked in. And there's a list there. It's easy to find. Stretch this out. So I think he worked in Ulaanbaatar and Ibaraki, and maybe with Mr. Hung and Pohang. So those are my hints of the cities he worked in. Question 5. Okay. Number 5. Where did he write his first novels? Where was he when he wrote his first novels? Was he in his provincial hometown of Sirac, Minnesota? Was he in the Bellagio Hotel in Vegas, eating the buffet and watching the water show? Where was he when he wrote his first novels? So, like I could ask, Temujin, where were you when you wrote your first love poem for Todd? Was it in Ulaanbaatar or Chicago? Or was it? Okay, question 6. I'll change this a little bit. Okay, 6. What was the name of his novel that made him famous? What was it? Let me stretch that out. 6, so that's 3. So it's a long, nice, beautiful page. Should I have one more question on there? Let me see. Tuya said she wants one more question, so. So it'll be an easy one, short one, and I think I will connect it to 6. That'll make it even easier. Okay, yeah, that's what I'll do. There we go with 7. Okay, kind of connected, but you can get it. So, which of his novels won the Pulitzer Prize? That's stretched out for you. So, which of his novels? Was it his novel, The Night the Chicken Stole My Car? Was it the night the bear cooked a pizza? What was the name of the novel? So let me give it a little time there. You got 4 you have to write down. And I'll take care of what I have to take care of for myself. You're doing good there? Leso? Canchanaseo? Doing good? All right, good. Good deal. Okay, I guess I can go for the eraser now. Acquire the eraser. Thank you, Bernie, for not trying to steal it. So 4, again, repeating, name some cities he worked in for different publishing houses. My choices are Ulaanbaatar, Pohang, and Ibaraki. 5, where did he write his first novels? I'm saying in his hometown in Minnesota, so rock. 60, what was the name of his novel that made him famous? To me, it was either The Night the Chicken Stole My Car or The Bear Made a Pizza, which I think was pepperoni. 7, which of his novels won the Pulitzer Prize? So again, Mr. Hong, don't be funny and write. Oh, Which of his novels won the Pulitzer Prize? The novel that won the Pulitzer Prize. It's not the answer. I will call the police if you do that. So 7 is gone. I've made my markings. So we go back to the delicious, as I always say, reading material. So we ended down here, the National Arts and Letters, some years ago. And that's going to bring us to 2006, Lishwan and Wani on the left-hand side. So let me proceed with moving forward. Oh, there's a picture of the man right there. Okay, there he is. Okay, so again, we're continuing with his non-acceptance of the Pulitzer Prize, and he says, now I must decline the Pulitzer Prize. A film version of Aerosmith was produced by Samuel Goldwyn in 1931. Samuel Goldwyn was probably the most powerful and famous movie producer of that time in the 30s and 40s. In 1925, Lewis divorced his first wife. 3 years later, in 1928, he married Dorothy Thompson, newspaper foreign correspondent, with whom he traveled to London. So I told you before, the man loved to travel. So when he was younger and just a little famous, he traveled to the US. Now, famous, money, he's going to Europe. So London, Berlin, which is in Germany, Vienna, and Moscow, which if I have Maria this quarter, I think, no, Maria's from where the Hermitage is, that city where the Hermitage Museum is. Sorry, I didn't want to say you're from Moscow. Maybe I'm from Moscow. Everybody thinks I'm Russian. So, despite Lewis's increasing problems as a result of, so just like a couple of our past writers, alcoholism, Ginsberg, the couple remained married until 1942 and had one son, Michael. So, not too bad. 28 to 42, 14 years. Some people get problems like alcoholism or what have you, and it only lasts a few years. Continuing, Lewis's subsequent or following novels, excuse me, much social, included Elmer Gantry, which they made a big movie with Burt Lancaster, which I'm sure you don't remember who that was. He was old when I was a kid. Dodsworth, 1929, which was adapted or made in the stage play by Lewis and Sidney Howard in 1934. And Vickers, 1933. It Can't Happen Here, 1935. Cass Timberlane, 1945. King's Blood Royal, or should I do these British style? King's Blood Royal, 1947. And The World's So Wide, 1951, as I soiled my trousers. In Elmer Gantry, the title character is a traveling salesman turned. So the traveling salesman turn brings us to the bottom of 206 on the left. So that means it's question time again. Like I said on the right, Sinclair Lewis was the first American to win the Nobel Prize in Literature. There he is. His hair looks really dark then, but this is not a color photo, so I would never know that his hair was red. Okay. Back to the whiteboard. So question 8. Why did he refuse the Pulitzer Prize? Let's stretch this out. Okay, my hints that he refused because he wanted $1 million instead. He wanted a bucket of chicken. Why did he refuse the Pulitzer Prize? To the next question. What kind of personal problem did he develop? Did he, excuse me, eat too many hamburgers? Did he develop a gambling problem? Did he start smoking 3 packs of cigarettes a day? What kind of personal problem did he develop? I hope my Temujin, my favorite student Temujin, does not have a Starbucks problem, because I don't know how many times I saw him at the Starbucks. So I hope he wasn't drinking 5 or 6 a day, because his head will fly off with too much caffeine. I worry about you, Temujin. Okay, and 10. So I am asking 3 questions on this short one. What were some of his later books? Okay, so that's why I was reading you that long list of this one, that one, this one, Mullah, Bura, Bura. So you have to pay a little attention there. Now, I don't want a lot. It is plural, you can see here, S. But again, the same rules apply. The person who gives me 1 does better than the person that does 0. The person who gives me 2 does better than 1. But I don't want, you know, I listed quite a lot, 8 books. I don't want all 8, but, you know, maybe more than 1, maybe more than 2. Because that's why it's in books here, okay? So let me give you a few to write those down. I'll mark off that I asked you 8, 9, and 10. Okay, and we have finished Lishuan with the 206 on the left-hand side. Okay, you guys gonna let me go for the eraser? No? Tuya said I can't do it unless I give her $20. I don't have $20. I usually ask the students for money. Okay, I'm gonna go for that eraser. Don't get mad, Mutia. So 8, repeating, why did he refuse the Pulitzer Prize? Because he wanted $1 million instead, or he wanted a bucket of KFC fried chicken. 9, what kind of personal problem did he develop? I say gambling or a severe smoking addiction. 10, what were some of his later books? So you'll see it there with the year. I don't want the years of the book. Just give me the titles. That's less for you to do. You don't need to know one was in 1925, one was in 27, one was in 33. No, just give me the names, okay? And I've already told you about how many would be cool. Okay, so let me go back to the reading material. by Sinclair. And guess what? This is the last reading for today. Yay! Are we excited? Show your appreciation. You know my email. Just send the checks there, and everything will be fine. Just joking. Okay. So here we go. This is our last reading for today. So the other one ends, traveling salesman turned evangelist, which means pastor or preacher, in this biting portrait of the business of religion set in the Depression era Midwest. So again, we had stinging from the bee, and now we have biting, which means a painful portrait. We have a saying in English, let's say the tickets from the police are very expensive now. They didn't used to be. Let's say you got a speeding ticket. So you could say, oh my God, that speeding ticket took a big bite out of my checking account because it was expensive, $700, $800. Speeding tickets used to be $300. So it's like double. So again, he likes to really be satirical and point out things. So Depression era Midwest, so that's in the 30s. Lewis traveled often in his later years. He loved beautiful surroundings, enjoyed residences or homes in several different locales or places. He had a stately old house in Williamston, Massachusetts, and a grand, ostentatious, so always, it's interesting, always attacking materialism, yet he has a giant, ostentatious villa. Ostentatious means like something for people that are rich, kind of like Kim Kardashian does. She buys a mansion for her in Conway, and it has 40 rooms. They're never going to use all 40 rooms. It's very ostentatious. Again, this writer wrote against American materialism, but once he got money, he did the same thing. And in Florence, Italy. When he traveled, he always stayed in the very best hotels. Okay, again, materialism. After Lewis and Thompson divorced in 1942, he spent much of his time with a young actress, Marcella Howers. But she later married someone else, so I guess this woman broke his heart. He loved her, but she ran away to be with someone else. So I wish him strength. That's happened to me in the past. So power to you, brother. Lewis spent his final years in Europe, suffering from failing health, which means he's dying, after a life of heavy drinking and a serious skin disease that irritated his already short temper. Again, it has not divulged exactly what it was. I'll have to do some biographical research on him and see exactly what it was. It was maybe a psoriasis. During his final years, he hired secretaries to play chess with him and keep him company. He was alone when he died in Rome from complications of advanced alcoholism. So that means his liver was dying on January 10th, 1951. Okay, to the right, you do not have to know these further readings. I just could not cut it out of the book to show the left. So don't worry about them at all, okay? But we have finished our lecture material for today. That's the finish of 2006 on the right. So let me go to the last questions. So how many questions do you want me to write here? Mr. Hong or Lesok or Caroline loves questions. Joey says, "My teacher, I want 50 questions each week. You're too lazy. I want more." So Should I write 10 questions on this last page? Or should I be kind? Well, let's start with question 11. Make sure I can see this. Okay. Alrighty then. What did he like to do in his later years? Let me stretch this out. Okay, is it safe to say he started studying Taekwondo? He liked to do Taekwondo? Or did he start doing the Mongolian wrestling, the book? Which I understood Tull can defeat Temujin in the Mongolian wrestling. She's too strong. Okay, what did he start or like to do in his later years? Okay, I have one more question, but Caroline wanted me to ask 10, so should I ask 9 more? Or 1 more? Because we're getting close to the end time. If I ask 9 more, whoa, we're going to have to extend another half hour. What do you want to do? Mess up? What's the answer? Shut up. What? Oh, okay, I'm going to do 1 more then. Okay. 12. Last question for today. So 12, what kind of work did his secretaries do before he died? Again, with the stretching. What kind of work did his secretaries do before he died? Take dictation, type up memos, vacuum, dust, cook lunch and dinner, set fires. What kind of work did his secretaries do before he died? So let me give you a minute to write those 2 down. And let me mark off that I asked you these questions. So we're done with the readings and questions for this week. Again, August 24th, 2020. All right, so can I go for the eraser? 감사합니다. Okay, 11, repeating, what did he like to do in his later years? I'm going to say he liked to do Taekwondo. 11's gone. 12, what kind of work did his secretaries do before he died? I'm going to say vacuum, dust, and cooking some delicious dinners. Maybe not so much secretarial work. Okay, so that's done. So that's it for today. There I am again. Goodbye. Take care. Stay safe. Wear your masks. And I shall talk to you next week. Thank you. Bye-bye.